Gormenghast. Chapter 27. If the success of a hostess is in any way dependent upon the lavishness of her preparation for the soiree she proposes, upon her outlook, on the almost insane attention which she gives to detail, and upon a wealth of forethought, then, theoretically at least, Irma Prunesquallor could look ahead to something that would correspond to those glimpses that came to her in the darkness when she lay half asleep and saw herself surrounded by a riotous throng of males battling for her hand, which she, the cynosure, swayed coquettishly upon her silk-swaddled pelvis. If the microscopic overhaul to which she was subjecting her person, her skin, her hair, her dresses, and her jewellery gave ground for the belief that so much passionate industry must necessarily wake and rescue a kind of beauty from where it had for so long been immured in her, wake it by a kind of surprise attack, a bombardment of her tall, angular day, then there was no need for Irma to have any fears upon the score of her attraction. She would be ravishing. She would set a new kind of standard in magnetism. After all, she had worked for it. Having tried on 17 necklaces and decided upon no necklace at all, so that the full length of her white throat might dip, bridle, and sway like a swan's in an absolute freedom of movement, she crossed to the door of her dressing-room, and hearing a footstep in the hall below, she could not resist crying out, "Alfred! Alfred! Only 3 days more, my dear! Only 3 days more! Alfred, are you there?" But there was no reply. The step she had heard was Steerpike's, who, knowing that the doctor was attending a case in the south kitchen, where a rôtier had slipped on a piece of lard and splintered his shoulder-blade, had taken the opportunity which he had for some time been waiting for, and climbed through the doctor's dispensary window, filled a bottle with poison, and having stowed it away in a deep pocket, decided to leave by the front door with an assortment of explanations in his hand from which to choose were he to be discovered in the hall. Why had there been no answer to his knocking, he would say? Why did they leave the front door open? Where was Dr. Prunesquallor? And so on. But he met no one, and took no notice of Irma's cry. When he got back to his room, he poured the poison into a beautiful little cut glass vessel, placed it against the light of the window where it shone. Then he stood back from it with his head on one side, stepped forward again to move it a little to the left, in the interest of symmetry, and then, returning to the centre of the room, ran his tongue along his thin lips as he peered with his eyebrows at the little flask of death. Suddenly he stretched his arms out on either side, the fingers splayed like starfish, as though he were wakening them to a kind of hypersentience of tingling life. Then, as though it were the most natural thing in the world, he lowered his hands to the ground, threw up his slender legs, and began to perambulate the room on the palms of his hands with the peculiarly stilted, rolling and predatory gait of a starling.